You have insurance on your car? No, I don't have insurance. You want to have insurance on your car? Why do you have insurance? So he bought it? Oh, okay. So you know how many people can pop up? No registration in there, no insurance? What is it? Okay. But you're buying the car. Did you already buy it? You're sitting over because you bought it. And you can't be over on Monday. Alright, okay.
Sergeant Hill, we hear sort of music playing on this vehicle. What's the likely source of that?
The vehicle-mounted stereo,
That's just the radio in the car.
your regular AM/FM stereo in a car.
We also hear some audio, voices, and whatever, the interactions with the car. And what's another source of that audio input to the car?
There are several different microphones available in the L3 system. One is worn in a small transmitter on the officer. The other is a microphone that is mounted in the vehicle to capture audio from within the vehicle.
Okay. The microphone on the officer, where is that typically located on that?
They carry it anywhere from their shirt pocket to the belt.
And that's obviously transmitted wirelessly back to the storage device in the vehicle?
Correct.
And what's generally the range that picks up audio?
The design is for the immediate area in and around the vehicle. There's a lot of things that can affect that. So we typically get 100 yards, maybe a little bit more from the vehicles.
Well, but that can depend on physical obstructions, things of that nature.
Correct.
And there's a point at which an officer can get a certain distance from the vehicle where that audio feed is going to cut off. Is that
Correct.
Sergeant Hill, thank you for being here and answering questions of the defense suspect.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Afternoon, sir.
You have been engaged in first response work for 17 years.
Yes, sir.
First as a fire department responder, and more recently as a police officer.
Yes, sir.
In your capacity as a police officer, I understood from your testimony that you were a patrolman.
I was.
And you are familiar with the duties of a patrolman in North Charleston.
I am.
You therefore would be familiar with the duties of Officer Slager in April 2015.
Yes, sir.
And you have had an opportunity to review the video marked as State's Exhibit Number 2, which was just played for the benefit of the jury on one or more occasions.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything in that video, either visually or in the audio, that's not an absolute straight arrow perfection?
Not that I can think of, sir.
The video shows that the Mercedes had been followed from east to west on Greenmount Road.
Correct.
And the video would show that there were on 2 occasions an observation of the equipment issue. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is it true that the policy of the North Charleston Police Department and the training that is provided there is not that you immediately stop somebody for an equipment failure, but it's a verification? So this case, the video would show that the observation of the Mercedes was at a traffic light in which the brake light did not work, and a subsequent verification at the railroad tracks that the brake light did not work.
Yes, sir.
And that's policy.
Yes, sir.
And the blue lights, the stopping of the vehicle for the equipment issue, did not occur until after that verification.
Oh, I'm sorry?
The stopping, the blue lights, the method in which you used to stop people did not occur until after that verification.
Correct.
The video would show, was played for the jury this afternoon, that a separate communication system from the body mic or the vehicle recording was used for Officer Slager to communicate with dispatch.
Correct.
Is that in accordance with policy?
Yes.
And that policy requires an identification of location, reason for the stop, and the identification of the vehicle that is being stopped.
Correct.
Was that done on this occasion?
I believe so, sir.
The vehicle that was stopped, I noticed that it didn't turn to the right, but turned to the left and crossed oncoming traffic, although there wasn't any. The vehicle turned to the left into a commercial establishment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Up until that stop, was there anything of either the driver or on the part of the police officer indicate anything other than a routine stop?
Not that I know of, sir.
When the officer, as you all say, exited, when the officer got out of his vehicle, he put his hand on the back of the vehicle that had been stopped.
Correct.
Is that in accordance with policy and procedure?
Policy and good practice.
And what is the reason for that?
There's several reasons. The most prominent one that we believe in is that that's your one opportunity to leave your fingerprints on the vehicle. If something happens tragically in the stop and the vehicle flees and you're disabled or unable to provide any further descriptions, the likelihood that the investigators following through would be able to find your fingerprints remains.
It's an automatic reflex of a patrolman stopping a vehicle regardless of where or when. That's just part of the DNA of the officer in a traffic stop.
Correct.
Does the policy and procedure, which was employed in April of 2015, require the officer making the stop to identify the reason for the stop?
To the operator,
To the operator of the vehicle, is the operator of the vehicle informed of why the vehicle was stopped?
it is good practice to do such.
Was it done in this case?
I believe so.
Is part of the training and practice in a vehicle stop, regardless of the reason therefore, is it always a question to ask, may I see your driver's license?
Yes.
May I see your registration?
Yes.
May I see your insurance policy?
Yes.
And those documents that are asked are required not by the officer, by law, to be present in the vehicle when it's operated on the roads of South Carolina.
Correct.
When the officer returned to his vehicle, do you know, based on your practice and experience, what the officer would have done in the vehicle?
I can give you a pretty good,
Well, tell us what the practice is, what the responsibility of the officer is to do at that time.
first would be to verify that the individual that provided you the license is the same individual pictured on the license you're holding in your hand, if you haven't already done that.
Is that because people who drive vehicles sometimes aren't
Unfortunately, sir, you are correct.
And what else are they supposed to do?
We're supposed to verify the insurance is current, the registration is current, that the license itself is current.
And the vehicle itself, the ownership of the vehicle.
Correct.
Because sometimes people drive cars that aren't their own, and there are other issues that may arise. Is that
Correct.
Now, did you see the operator of the vehicle that was stopped get out of the vehicle?
I did.
And was a policy and procedure good practice of patrolmen to always separate themselves from the operator of the vehicle? In other words, are they invited back to sit in the front seat of the patrol car, or are they kept separate from the patrol car?
Kept separate.
And is that policy and procedure?
Good practice.
And that's done to protect the safety of the individuals involved.
Correct.
Did you notice that there was a passenger in the vehicle?
I did.
And do you know, based on policy and practice and your training and experience, is that is a concern of a law enforcement officer who stops the vehicle?
Yes.
Now, from what you viewed in the video that was shown to the jury, did the inquiry as to the driver of the vehicle or the owner of the car or the insurance information, was that ever responded to of what you saw on the video?
It was.
Did the officer receive return information to confirm the ownership or the status of the driver of the vehicle?
It's my understanding that he received conflicting information.
That was from the driver of the vehicle.
Correct.
The question is, when he got back in his vehicle, he being the officer involved in the stop, he has an opportunity to call somewhere out there and find out more about the driver of the vehicle, the ownership of the vehicle, and the insurance of the vehicle.
Correct.
Was there ever a return of that information?
I'm not sure.
If there was a return of the information, that would be on the video.
It would be located on the video at some point. It would also be in audio tapes from dispatch or computer logs.
Let's talk about Officer Slager's equipment on the morning of April 4th. In response to the prosecutor's question, you said that officers in North Charleston have computers.
Some of them do, yes.
Would it be fair to say that in April of 2015, that was maybe not a rarity, but that wasn't common to have a computer?
We were getting to be more common with computers. It's been a challenge.
It was in a transition from old-timey communications, old-timey in this sense being a radio dispatch to headquarters or wherever that is to get the information.
Correct.
The new way of getting information is a computer and a vehicle.
Correct.
Do you know whether Officer Slager had a computer in his vehicle?
I believe he did.
And the information then that would have come back from headquarters or dispatch or whatever would have been on a screen in his vehicle's computer.
I believe he could query Department of Motor Vehicle records, but I believe a check of NCIC would have been done over the radio.
And that information, by looking at the computer, you could tell after the fact that that information had not been received.
I believe you could, yes.
And in your observation of the video, did you see any reason, plausible explanation for Mr. Scott to run?
Objection, Your Honor. Call for speculation.
Response.
The question is, based on his training and experience, did you see in the video any reason for Mr. Scott?
I heard the question, the response to the objection.
What the objection would be as to
Restate the objection.
Call speculate for the reasoning going on in Mr. Scott's law.
Objection is the question calls for speculation.
the information in the video was recorded in the trunk of the police car, is that correct?
In this case, I believe it was the center console.
And as I understood your testimony, that's preserved, and that is how it got to the courtroom today.
Correct.
The source of audio communications with that video would be twofold, or threefold, I guess. A microphone in the unit itself, that's where we hear the music,
Correct.
and then a microphone worn on the body of Officer Slager,
Correct.
and then he, in addition to that microphone, would also have a radio.
Handheld, portable radio, also worn on the belt.
Hopefully not to be confusing. The audio communications to the dispatch could also be recorded in the unit.
There's also a mobile radio installed in the car, which if the officer broadcast on his portable, would be rebroadcast and heard within the cab of the police car, and also captured on the in-car video microphone mounted on the partition.
And the technology is such that you could go to the different channels and segregate the audio sound,
Correct.
so that the jury, if they wanted to listen to the communications that day, could be unburdened by 98 rock music.
I believe so.
And based on your training and experience as a patrolman, as an officer in the training department, it's good practice and suggested that officers, before using their taser, warn the party who it's going to be used against.
Yes, sir.
And in watching and listening to the audio of this recording, that was done.
Yes, sir.
And it was done within close proximity of the radio signal from the portable microphone back to the unit itself.
It was, sir.
And there were other warnings given on the video, audio warnings from the officer to the driver of the vehicle,
Yes, sir.
including the second warning of the taser,
I believe so.
and a warning to get on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Now, if we can, as far as State's Exhibit 1, we have another image so that I don't have to walk it down. Officer, would you say that this image, if it comes up, is basically the same as the one shown earlier?
I believe the majority of the images are similar.
Do you recognize the intersection of Rivers Avenue with Remount Road?
I do, sir.
And it would be fair to say that Remount Road runs generally in the east-west direction?
It does?
And Rivers Avenue runs in the north-south direction.
Correct.
And if we were in a helicopter, we would be less than a mile from the property owned by the Charleston County Aviation Authority, just west of this area.
I believe so.
And the area where you saw the vehicle that you recovered the data from was on the corner of Craig, is it Street or Road? And Remount Road, is that correct?
Correct.
And that yellow path or whatever it is, sort of towards the center of the visual, are you familiar with that area?
I am, sir.
And did the State Law Enforcement Division that investigated this case ever ask you to test the distance, given the conditions there, the foliage, the leaves, the other buildings, to approximate or test the distance in which communications would travel back to the police unit?
No, sir.
Did not ask you to do that?
They did not ask me to replicate with that vehicle and those recorders and transmitters.
Did the State Law Enforcement Division that investigated this case involving Officer Slager and Mr. Scott ask you to preserve the microphone that was used by Officer Slager on the morning of April 4th?
Initially, no.
It was the microphone that was used by Officer Slager kept in any fashion separate from the other microphones and the other supplies at the direction of the chief of police, or some lieutenant, captain, major, assistant chief, or any slave?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do we know where the microphone that Officer Slager used is?
Definitively, I don't think I can answer that.
Because we don't know.
I don't know.
That's the audio portion of this video that the prosecutor has shown this jury so that they could better understand what happened that morning.
Correct. That is the source of the audio.
Excuse me for just a minute. Are there any additional questions for prosecutor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Officer Hill, you were asked, based on your experience as a patrolman, former experience, to talk about sort of the steps an officer takes at a typical traffic stop. Do you recall
Yes.
that? I believe you said the first step was license verify. Is that correct?
We asked them to produce a driver's license.
Right, and not only just produce it, but once produced, verify.
Correct.
And what does that mean?
Means verify the person behind the wheel of the car is the same on the license you're holding.
And you said, Mr. Savage, went to some effort to establish that Officer Slager, to you, seems to have followed these best practices in this case.
Correct.
So not only did Officer Slager have in his hand and in his possession Walter Scott's license, he would have, had he followed those practices, known that it was Walter Scott's license, not some fake ID, if he would have verified it right there.
At face value, yes.
Okay. Also, some questions were asked about equipment. You expressed some familiarity with the typical equipment that a patrol officer might carry.
Yes.
Is it true that they might carry other types of equipment in their patrol vehicle?
Yes.
Right, and would that kind of extra equipment perhaps include other weapons, other firearms?
We have a policy where less lethal shotguns are used and patrol rifles.
And might those be stored in the patrol vehicle?
In the trunk, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that, in Mr. Savage's cross, that a passenger in a vehicle is always a concern, right?
Correct.
Because it's another person you have to worry about, right?
Correct.
And these are very fluid, could be dangerous situations, right?
Correct.
Now you mentioned that Officer Slager followed, the question I believe was framed in policy and procedures, and the responses were it's not policy and procedures, but good practices, right?
Correct.
And those are good practices that you learned over a long career in law enforcement, right?
Correct.
Is leaving a running patrol vehicle, which may contain weapons, alone with an unknown passenger in a vehicle to chase someone down for a broken taillight, does that comport with these good practices that you talked about? I know it's difficult to criticize another officer's work, but does that comport with your years of experience?
There's a lot of decisions that have to be made
Absolutely.
right there and then. The absolute prudent thing would be to have secured that vehicle, running or not, but at least locked,
Right. Especially for a broken taillight.
for any reason.
On the software that records the sound that we've heard on the video, the L3 software, I'm sorry.
The L3 system.
It's taking on audio from the mic that we've discussed on the officer's person,
Correct?
and an in-car mic.
Correct.
Does the software allow you to cut off the audio input from one or the other if you need to while operating?
The officer can turn off the microphone.
Right.
It's a recessed switch, not easily accessible to avoid inadvertent switching. When watching the video, we can isolate those different lines coming in,
1 feet or the other.
one feed at a time. Correct.
So if we need to do that, that can be done.
Yes.
Yeah, that can be done on the player that we played here in court.
Correct.
Okay. Court. So we're just going to have to view the interface again. Screen, I believe. And how would one operate that to isolate the different sources?
In the window that's open, the upper left-hand corner where you see audio, and then there's 3 boxes. There's VLP1, VLP2, and in-car audio. By selecting or unselecting those will eliminate that particular audio track or include it when you play.
Okay, so if we need to remove the music from the car, that can be done.
Correct. If you remove and unselect the in-car audio, you will lose the in-car audio completely.
Okay. And just give an example.
If I may, when it begins playing, there's no sound recorded in the pre-record.
Oh, thank you.
So that's why it's quiet.
That's in the 20 seconds, it's automatically recorded.
Correct.
So by toggling the switch in the upper left-hand corner, you can vary between the different audio sources.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. No,
Briefly, so do I understand based on the inquiry of the solicitor that if an officer in the traffic stop wanted to manipulate or hide a conversation with a driver of the vehicle, they could just turn the microphone off?
They could, but it is difficult to do. The switch is small and it is recessed and not easy to do.
I do.
Doable.
16 years being a first responder, and however many years as a patrolman working in the police department, have you ever known anybody to run from a broken taillight?
Not that I can think of in my experience.
Because people don't run from something they don't even get a ticket for. They run for some other reason. In the national studies of people who are engaged in vehicle chases,
objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
thanks.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
Stays out, time you left.
All right, let's stand and get a little stretch while Tanya Millette is coming. Everybody. Yes. You want to be seated?
You swear affirm the testimony you shall give before the jury in the trial of this case, and give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your first and last name and spell your last name loudly and clearly in the microphone.
Sure. Tanya Millette, Mallettete.
Good afternoon, Ms. Millette.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again.
Same here.
You told the jury your name. Could you please tell them where you work? What you
Sure.
do for a living?
I am currently employed by the Charleston County Consolidated 911 Center.
And what is the purpose of the Charleston County Consolidated 911?
The 911 Center serves as the primary 911 and non-emergency answering point for the Charleston County community.
Okay. And so it's just not just 911 calls, but non-emergency calls. They're all routed through there as well.
Absolutely.
What is your position at the Consolidated 911 Center?
Currently, I am an analyst.
And what does an analyst do?
An analyst is responsible for subpoena compliance, Freedom of Information Act compliance, records custodian, and I also handle complaints
Okay. And how long have you been with the 911 Center?
since 2010.
And was that when the center opened?
Yes.
And what did you do before that?
Prior to joining Consolidation, I was the communications supervisor for North Charleston Police Department.
Okay. And what did you do in that job?
I was the communications supervisor.
And what does the communication supervisor do?
Yes, I supervised a team of 24 members, providing effective supervision and administration, employee development, training, budgeting, administrative duties, scheduling, and I also, during shortages, performed dispatching duties as well as call-taking duties.
Okay, because back then, everybody had their own dispatch center. Right?
Absolutely, yes.
Everybody had their own 911 center. And that's the purpose of the Consolidated 911 Center, correct? So every law enforcement agency doesn't run their own.
Correct.
But that's what you were doing back before the Consolidated Center, correct?
Yes, yes.
Now, when you first started with the Consolidated 911 Center back in 2010, what were you doing?
I was a floor supervisor through 2010, 2011.
Okay, and could you tell our jury briefly how the Consolidated 911 Center works?
Sure. It's set up in different stages. So when a call comes in through 911 or the administrative lines, it is answered by a call taker. That call taker will inquire as well as verify the location as well as the caller's name.
How do they verify the location?
We have what you call an ANI, alley screen, automatic number indicator, automatic location indicator, and it displays, let me clarify, if it's a landline phone, it will display the residence or the business information. If it's a cell phone, it will display the tower information.
Okay, so when the caller comes in, and y'all already know pretty much the area he's calling from, correct?
Yes,
Is a landline pretty much exactly? If it's a cell phone, the area, correct?
correct.
I imagine nowadays you probably get a lot more cell phone calls than landline calls.
We do, much more, yes.
And what happens when the 911 call comes in?
It is answered by a call taker. As I said, they inquire and verify the location as well as the telephone number. They will begin to ask a series of questions. We call those protocols. Depending on the answer to those protocols, it is directed to a resource, be it law, EMS, fire, or rescue for dispatch.
And are all calls into the 911 center recorded?
Yes.
And the 911 center is not just a calling center, it's also the dispatch for the entire county, is that correct?
Yes,
Y'all dispatch for Charleston County Sheriff's Department, North Charleston Police Department, Mount Pleasant Police Department, all of these agencies, correct?
yes,
So y'all are joint dispatcher and 911 call receiver, correct?
yes.
Now, you said that all calls into the system are recorded, is that correct?
Yes,
And how are they recorded?
they're recorded by, we call it, well, it's referred to as the NICE recording system.
And how about cases such as this one, which didn't originate with the 911 call, but pretty much radio traffic? Do y'all record all of that as well?
Yes, radio traffic is also recorded.
Okay. Because it all routes through the consolidated center, correct?
Yes,
And are those radio transmissions recorded at or about at the time that they are made?
yes, they are.
And are the radio transmissions maintained in the normal and ordinary course of business at the consolidated 911 center?
Yes, they are.
And how long are these recordings maintained by the 911 center?
For a period of 1 year.
And what happens after a year?
They are overwritten or purged from the system.
Okay. Now, directing your attention to August 26th of 2015, did my office, the solicitor's office, request that you provide us with a copy of the real-time radio transmissions relating to the officer involved, shooting involving the defendant, in this case, Michael Slager.
Yes, you did.
And what are real-time radio transmissions?
Real time is the actual time that the incident occurred.
Okay. Because oftentimes when people ask you for 911 calls, you'll give them a condensed version, correct?
Correct.
Take out all the dead time.
And the silence, correct.
And the difference between that and the real time is that it occurs at the same time that these events occurred in real life. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what did you do upon receiving this request?
Upon receiving this subpoena, I downloaded the information from my computer, from the NICE system onto my computer, and I sent it by way of internet to your office, in which you downloaded it from there.
Okay. And in the process of downloading it from the NICE system to your computer, did you alter, amend, or edit the recordings in any way?
I did not.
And did you even have the capacity to do so?
I do not.
And I'm going to hand you now what's previously been marked as State's Exhibit Number 8, and ask if you can identify this case.
Sure. This is the real-time audio of the North Charleston Police radio transmission.
And how do you know that?
Well, actually, I listened to it prior to initialing it and dating it
Okay, and you confirm that it is an exact copy
of what I sent you.
of what you sent us and what is stored on your computer at this consolidated 911 center. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that is correct.
They're not edited, altered, tampered with in any way.
Correct.
It has or has not?
Has
Has it
not.
or has not?
It has not
Okay.
been altered or edited.
And you know that because you compared it to the original dated and initial. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Those are your initials right here with October 14, 2016. Correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, we would offer State's Exhibit 8 and evidence at this time without objection.
Admit it.
And I have no further questions of this witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon.
I want to go a little bit more depth of what you do so that the jury has a full understanding of how communications work with first responders. Prior prior to 2010, every jurisdiction, that was the City of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, County Sheriff, North Charleston, leaving out, all have their own
Alapone.
right, dispatch. And the only one that didn't jump aboard was Folly Beach, is that correct?
Well, Folly Beach did jump aboard, but they left.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But so in the consolidated, that means, consolidated means all the jurisdiction of first responders within the boundaries of Charleston County except for Folly.
That is correct.
And all the 911 phone calls, whatever their source, comes to that consolidated dispatch.
That is correct.
And those calls can be anything from a fire to a need for emergency medical services to a police department call for whatever reason the police would be called.
That is correct.
So those are from what I would call civilian sources. People calling in who are not associated with first responders calling in for help.
That is correct.
And when those calls come into consolidated dispatch, are there designated employees who typically respond to, say, the City of Charleston?
As far as the telephone calls are concerned? Or the...
Any type of call that comes in.
Well-
Are there specific people who take the call per jurisdiction?
No,
Because you wouldn't know what the jurisdiction is, correct?
that is correct.
As opposed to police or fire or whatever communications to you, those can be reported to people that are designated for that particular jurisdiction.
No, all calls for radio transmission, yes, those are designated to the respective agency. Telephones, obviously, they go through the call taker.
Right. And in this case, we have response or communications from agency members to consolidated dispatch, no civilians.
Correct.
Now, when a call comes in for service, are there receiving people and then the message is transferred to somebody else who communicates with first responders?
That is correct.
And those those communicators with first responders have more TVs than are in this room.
That is correct.
And on those TVs, let's say City of North Charleston, for example, in April of 2015, 18 months ago, a person working, communicating with police officers about their needs and where they should go, they can tell by looking at a screen where all the police officers working that day are located. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And on those screens where a person given those communications, those are real time for officers who have a computer in their car. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the officers who don't have a computer in their car, their location is designated on your screen by the last known call.
That is correct.
So in terms of real time, those officers who have a computer, you know exactly where they are. Those officers who do not have a computer in their vehicle, you don't know exactly where they are. In theory, they're at work, but in terms of where they're located real time, it is not necessarily up to date.
That is correct.
But you can tell by a roster that's given at the beginning of the shift who is working that day.
That is correct.
So that if you were at the consolidated dispatch, were you there on April 4th, 2015?
I was not.
But if you have been there at the beginning of the shift, you could tell how many officers were working in North Charleston and you could tell within the zones in which they worked who was available so that you could tell them what to do.
That is correct.
And that information of who shows up for work that day is provided by some supervisor at North Charleston. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, when it comes to a civilian dialing 911, the decision on what officer to dispatch in response to that call is your decision. In
The
other
dis-
words,
the-
not yours personally, but
The law
consolidated
dispatcher.
dispatch looks at the screen and says, Unit 241, respond to, and they give an address.
That is correct.
And before they go there, they say it's a criminal domestic violence, or it's a cat on the roof, or whatever that is. There's some indication of the security level.
That is correct.
And that protocol that the prosecutor talked about earlier depends on the type of call. If it's a cat on the roof, one officer goes. If it's criminal domestic violence, two officers are dispatched. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then so the whole deal that police do all day long is categorized in consolidated dispatch so that the officer can be safe.
That is correct.
Because multiple officers arriving at a potential scene for violence, the risk to the citizens involved or the police officer is minimized by the number of officers there.
That is correct.
And that's the protocol. That's the rules we go by. After going back to the dispatch tapes and looking at whatever the prosecutor subpoenaed from you in real-time communications on April 4th of 2015, do you know how many people showed up for work that day at North Charleston?
I do not.